In this video, I'm gonna share with you the #1 method to get better at chess, and the best part is, it's completely free. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. So the best method that I know to improve your chess is first to play against a very strong opponent, and second to analyze the game properly. Because firstly, if you're playing against stronger opponents, you learn so much in the process. You learn the way they think during the game because, well, maybe you're thinking about some of their moves, but the reality shows that they play something completely different, and then you're trying to understand what went wrong in your decision making. And secondly, because when you analyze the game, you can really dive deep into what went wrong and learn so much out. I'm in Munich these days playing in the Munich Open, a very strong chess tournament, and I have played against a member of national chess team of Germany, Frederick Swanne. So I was playing as black in this game, and well, first of all, what you can do when you analyze the game, you can of course take a look at the game review. Now, it doesn't show you, of course, any details, but it's just a general overview of what was going on, of how many mistakes you have made, and so on. So yes, a brief review of these numbers can give you a first indication how the game went. But then you of course need to dive deeper into it. So let's do it together. The game started with e4, d6. I'm playing my favorite opponent because I decided, yes, the drawback is my opponent is gonna prepare for it, and that's a big problem. I need to deal with it. But on the other hand, well, it's what I understand best, and if I'm playing against a very strong opponent, well, I better have a position that I understand. Now, of course, I have prepared myself against so many variations, but the problem is my opponent prepared something else that I wasn't really that prepared of. So he played here the move h3. That is okay on its own, no problem. I mean, it seems like white is just making a Luft for the king for the future, but it's so away from the truth. The reality is my opponent played g4 here, and he is just ready to attack me, to crush me immediately. And unfortunately, this particular move order I wasn't that prepared for, and this is where all of the problems begin. Because when you play against a very strong opponent, and he is powered by the engine, I mean, Stockfish is nowadays the best you can get, and then you don't know what to do, this is a huge, huge challenge. So of course, generally I knew the plans that I should be trying to attack here on the queen side, create my counterplay. You can never play chess without a counterplay and expect some good results to happen to you. You always need to create some pressure on your opponent, always need to create threats for him, even if he is one of the best players in the country. Still, g4 is, kind of an indication he wants to go forward, play g5 and attack this knight. The knight has to go somewhere, so I just played h6. I knew this is generally a normal setup. You play c6, you play h6, but then my opponent plays a4, and it shuts down the whole counterplay that I was hoping to get here on the queen side with the move b5. So this is, like first indication something is not that great for me, but okay, I'm continuing my development. I know that the bishop is going to e7, so I'm making that move. But here I started to think, like, I cannot just castle here, right? Because my opponent is gonna continue the attack, and that is gonna destroy me. Bishop comes, this rook is very active, my king is there, like, waiting for troubles. This is not the way it should work. And I pretty much knew that, so I played instead the move queen to c7, which is not the best move. Let me tell you, the best one is queen to a5, immediately here attacking that pawn and once again creating some threats, some counter threats. But I didn't like it because of bishop takes d2, and now there are so many discover attacks coming from this knight, and I wasn't happy about it. But it turns out I can just stay there, and after knight takes, play queen to e5. Well, that's very good to know. But having your queen in the center, I mean, if you don't know that the right way, I would hardly ever even think about it, because it doesn't have a lot of squares, and generally you don't want to have your queen in the center of the board. I mean, just knight f3, the queen has to go away. It's really asking for trouble, but somehow the engine claims you can play it. Okay, That's tough to spot. I played queen to c7 instead, and after bishop e3, I played knight to f8 because I knew this is a legitimate plan. I want to relocate my knight to g6, which would do two functions there. It would still protect the pawn on e5, just as it did on d7, but it's not blocking the bishop anymore. And it's blocking the g file, which would be very, very beneficial, like to have another defender against my opponent's attack. And maybe it's gonna jump to f4 on a good day, where it's gonna create some difficulties for the opponent. My opponent plays bishop c4, and they thought, okay, knight on f8 actually has another very good feature here. It controls the e6 square, so I might use it to play bishop e6 and exchange a pair of bishops. Generally, in the Philidor defense, you have kind of lack of space. For example, this bishop has nowhere to go, but if you exchange a few pieces, then it's going to be much simpler. Also, in terms of this attack, that makes sense. The more pieces you exchange, the more difficult it is for your opponent to attack you because, well, there are less resources, and so it's easier for you to deal with the threats. And now after queen e2, I made, in my eyes, the first mistake. I mean, I don't really need to do anything special. I can just take on c4, just continue my plan, and then even bring the knight to e6 here. At least that was one of the possible ideas, putting some pressure on the center, having the knight here kind of blocking all of the holes. Another idea is to play knight 6 to d7, but this is more complicated. I guess I would have just played knight e6 and be okay with that. Yes, white is still better, no question about that, but black's position is very solid. Instead, I decided that queen e2, I don't know, feels a little bit weird to my eyes, that nobody is guarding this diagonal, so let me play queen to a5 now. But the problem is I'm breaking the golden principle of development in the opening, and I ask you never do that. Namely, I'm making the second move with the same piece that has already been developed. Notice that my opponent only spent one tempo per one piece, and this is the golden rule. One piece, one tempo. Always try to follow it in your games at all costs. But queen a5, I thought it makes sense. It still protects the pawn, it pins the knight, so knight takes e4 is now a threat, and in case of castles, I was going to play queen to b4. This is exactly what happened in the game. My opponent castled, but somehow I started to calculate more lines and decided, no, maybe queen b4 is not the best. And yeah, this is actually the case. So I played the move knight takes e4 here. And it seemed to me like it should be not that bad. Yes, the problem is that my development is far from being over. So my opponent already brought all of his pieces into the game. This is what you should always focus on. But instead, my king is standing in the center. I cannot castle, so I have some difficulties. But the key point comes here. If I do the right takes, then it's still kind of okay for me. Can you please find the right capture for black here? So the right capture, of course, once again, it's simpler than it seems, just to take the bishop, because you eliminate this very, very important attacker. We will see why it's so important, because I took the knight and that was the wrong decision. You are still attacking the pawn. My opponent said he was gonna take the pawn on c4, and then I was trying to calculate these variations after queen takes a4, knight e6, takes, and he was right. He told me that should be much better for white. And that's true, even though I can get here this pawn back on b2, it doesn't really help because my king is in the center, and yeah, that's very dangerous. But I do have a better move. I don't know, I hope I would have found it if I would have taken on c4. Queen to d5. I mean, I have definitely seen it, I just didn't realize it's so good. Because now you cannot really protect both of the knights without moving one of them to d2. And so if you come with this one, then I have the move b5 and I finally get my counterplay. Then I'm attacking this guy, the queen still comes to a2. If you exchange the pawns on b5, then this rook comes to c file, and yeah, somehow I'm becoming very active. Yes, my king is still in the center, but I need like 2 tempi to deal with it, and then I'm going to be fine. And if this knight comes to d2, then I have queen to a2, and now once again putting some pressure, attacking this pawn, and yeah, this is the position you can live with. But instead, unfortunately, I have taken the knight, because I thought, well, I'm still about to exchange those bishops. If he takes, I'm happy to take with the knight. Castle, I mean, life is fantastic. And I'm still attacking the a4 pawn, and it's very inconvenient to defend it. And if you don't, I thought, then you're going to have some troubles over here. I mean, that's your king after all. but I completely missed my opponent's counterplay. And this is another thing you should never do in your games. So always think about the most active opportunities, both for you and for your opponent. Those are checks, captures, threats, and active moves, just in general moves going forward. So here, yes, check is not a problem at all. There is only one reasonable capture here on the 6, doesn't really help, but there is a huge threat that I completely missed, or better to say I have underestimated, because yes, I have seen it, but somehow it didn't cross my mind that it's so dangerous. The problem is, I thought he doesn't have time for it because he has to defend this pawn on a4, and this is so essential. So I thought of something like b3, and then I have those ideas like queen c3, bishop a3. I mean, that would be cool. But unfortunately, he doesn't care about the a4 pawn. He just plays d5 and says the best way to deal with the problem if one of your pieces is hanging is to create a counter threat. So I'm attacking his pawn, he's attacking my bishop. This is bigger than that. But then I calculated the variations. I actually thought I can take here, and if you take the bishop, that's going to be fine. Okay, the engine still prefers white by a huge margin, but my variation was here something like bishop b4, c3, queen takes b2, and the king has to go, bishop takes c3, king goes to f1, and then I can exchange the queens first and take. Yeah, I even thought I can take on a 6 because in the meantime I have gathered like 4 pawns for a piece, so I thought that should be good for me. But apparently the problem is I'm still far from finishing my development and the position is just lost for me. I mean, this is unexpected. Yes, I understand I lose this pawn, but I have 3 connected passers. Why is it so bad for black? Apparently the knight is just too powerful, and yeah, rook d7 is even stronger here. That's, I would agree. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get a $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. Okay, so at least that was my hope, but then I realized instead of all of that, my opponent can just play after queen takes a4, just stop this entire check, just play king to b1, and there is no threat at all. Yes, I have won a pawn, congratulations, but other than that, those problems are coming. So if you don't understand why d5 is so powerful, the problem is I cannot take with the pawn because of bishop b5 check. Yeah, now it's winning the queen, but even if I would have taken it a move earlier, this is still a very bad news for my king. If I try to block it, then yeah, one capture, then even bishop takes d7, okay, and rook takes d5. Rook d1. Well, actually, once again, I wouldn't think this is so bad because I have 2 rooks for the queen, but the problem is, as always, development is the key to success, and if your pieces are not developed, this rook doesn't come into play, then it's like you have 1 rook against the queen, and that's completely different story. +5, white is completely winning. Okay, this is crazy, actually. So yeah, of course I understood that if I allow that, then I'm completely busted. So I cannot take. If I take with the bishop instead, then the rook takes d5. And this is what I have missed when I played, when I took the knight on a4. I remember my opponent was so surprised to see me taking the knight because he was like, are you really going into it? You are very brave. But yeah, of course, this is just bad because after takes, now bishop b5 check, I don't have anything to block. If I place my knight there, he just takes. And if I play king d8, then, well, I saw knight takes f7 and that was good enough for me. But the engine says queen d1 is just winning on this spot. Okay, so this pawn on d5 is untouchable. So I took an a4, and after king b1, I came up with this move knight to a d7, and I thought that's pretty smart because he's attacking my bishop, but I'm attacking his knight. And if you take this guy, okay, that's still entirely lost. I hoped here to take and then just castle. Yeah, I saw the move rook d4. This is a huge problem because now bishop takes f7 is a huge threat, and I don't have time to somehow relocate my queen because rook takes e4, and I just one tempo short. This is like chess is always a tragedy of one tempo. If I could castle and play bishop f6, let's say, I don't know, f3, and play bishop f6, then I would be happy. But I have an extra pawn here, and I castled, but the engine still says it's +5, completely lost. Okay, then I was too far away from any hopes in this position. But anyway, this is what I was looking for. And instead, my opponent takes on c6, which I actually anticipated. I really hoped for him to make this move because I saw a very nice line. So I'm taking on e5. That's what I did. He takes on b7, and that would be all very nice if I could just play rook b8 and have all of my beautiful pieces here. But the problem is, of course, bishop b5 with a check just wins the queen on the spot. But I figured out I can castle, and if he takes here, which I really hoped for, then I'm taken here on c4. And yes, my opponent has two queens, but I'm attacking both of them simultaneously, and queen a2 is still on my agenda, attacking the queen. Okay, once again, the engine doesn't care at all. He's not feeling optimistic about any of my ideas, but I actually thought I'm just an exchange. No, I have... okay, I'm 2 exchanges down. Yeah, then that's a lot. Then that's not enough. But at least I would have some attacking chances and I would feel great about it. Instead, my opponent took on a6. And so we have now the position with an extra pawn on b7, which I hoped to take. But I made another huge mistake. Actually, the only real blunder in this game, because my opponent made a mistake here according to the engine, but in terms of how the game went, it worked perfectly for him. After knight f3, pause the video for a second. I can flip the board for you so you have white pieces in front of you and find the brilliant move my opponent made in this position. Okay, I really hope you have taken your time because it's worth it. So the move is queen takes e4. It sacrifices this rook, and I don't know what happened to me at this point. Yes, I was low on time, but how on earth can you expect a 26 plus 100 rated player to just give up the rook like that? So I have taken, yes, I have checked the checks. I mean, I'm not that stupid. Then I have checked the captures. And once again, there is nothing to capture. This pawn on f7, it's a check. I just take it. This pawn on g7 cannot be taken because the queen is going to be taken. So the bishop is pinned. It cannot go there. And this thought inspired me so much. I was like, what is going on? Why on earth can they take the rook? And I just couldn't figure it out. But I hope you did when you were thinking about queen takes e4, because this second move is the key, something I completely missed. Queen to g6, and it's just checkmate immediately. I mean, I have given up the queen, but otherwise it's just checkmate. How on earth can you miss that? I don't really understand. So checks, captures, and threats. I have failed to go for the third step somehow. And the right move, of course, was to eliminate this powerful bishop. And actually, I would argue the position is not that simple. Yes, I'm a pawn down. That's quite a good advantage, but we have opposite colors bishops. And I do have some prospects to attack the king here. I mean, this is far from over. My opponent said he was going to play queen f5, but then bishop goes to f6 with a tempo. The rook goes somewhere. Yeah, rook d7 is quite annoying. But okay, that's a play. I mean, I'm coming here. Rook a7 for some reason is, yeah, for example, that doesn't work because I have bishop takes b2, and then after takes I have queen d4. I mean, this is a very rich game ahead of us. I'm sure I would fight here till the last possible move, but why on earth? And I of course saw that. I saw that, okay, at least I have here knight d4, and that's not as bad as it was before in this game. I mean, I have suffered through so much, and now I have a chance just to be a pawn down with opposite colors bishops and some prospects for attack. That's great. But of course, if you think you can take a rook, then you want to take a rook because this is even better. But unfortunately, because of queen to g6, this is just completely losing immediately. And I was so devastated once this move appeared. My opponent took the queen, he placed it on g6, and then he was looking from all of the sides just to make sure he didn't blunder something, because he also couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm an international master after all, that I'm gonna blunder in one move just like that. It's not that typical, right? So he was just making sure he's not blundering the queen somehow. And the problem is, of course, I would be happy to take here the bishop. He takes back, then I'm taking the, the queen and win the game. But once again, tragedy of one tempo, nobody is taking my queen. He's just giving me a checkmate immediately. And if I take this bishop, then I cannot take the queen because the pin is still there. So yeah, I didn't resign because it's always very difficult for me to resign immediately. I don't know, I just prolonged this suffering. I played knight to d2 check, but yeah, I was completely devastated at this point. After queen to f4, I finally accepted that there is nothing to be done about this game. So yes, it's not one of my best days at all, but still such an experience is always useful to learn something new, to understand what you need to work on. I mean, this is still a very long time for me to be able to play on this level. So I really hope to get there one day, and I hoped you learned a lot out of this. And in this video, you're gonna see the previous round that I have played. It was much better. You're gonna learn so much out of it.